Welcome to the Catholic Men's Show. Today we are going to ask the question, have we made information our idol? So now we can figure out anything we want immediately and have all of the right answers in our fingertips.
And everything is fine.
Everything is fine.
And everything is great.
It's working out wonderfully, by the way.
Good.
Yeah. So the question we are posing today is, have we made information our idol?
Are we gonna do?
But before we get there,
all right.
Download the brand new AWAKEN Catholic app. You can find this new app on the App Store, whether you have an Android or the iPhone 12. Or is it compatible with the iPhone 11?
Well,
users need to know.
We specifically made it not compatible with iPhone 11 due to a arrangement with Apple.
Oh man,
Just kidding.
Okay, it is compatible with your iPhone 11. Download the brand new
Or the
AWAKEN
10.
Catholic app.
come hang out. It's awesome.
How far will it go down? iPhone 6?
I think it goes all the way down to iPhone 6.
Okay. All right, and if you have an iPhone 5, time to upgrade.
iPod Nano, you can
So you can get all the information you want whenever you want, even faster.
yeah,
5G.
even more addictive.
And also, today's sponsor of the show is the author, Joseph Boggs. He's a local author in our area, and he has written the book, Prohibition's Proving Ground. It's one of these great pieces of local history. It is about the Prohibition, cops, cars, rumrunners in the Toledo-Detroit-Windsor Corridor. So some would say this is a history of the Grodi family. We discussed this on our last show.
Still running rum.
They're still
I
running.
can neither confirm nor deny.
What is in that cup of coffee? Oh my gosh.
right. I'm
We
not
have no
gonna tell.
idea. He is drunk.
Gosh.
All right. So, information. We can figure out anything we want, whenever we want, and get information that confirms what we already think, contradicts what we already think. It's wildly available. Information is everywhere.
I would actually challenge that a little bit.
Go with yeah.
I don't think facts, so true information, or the truth of the information we're seeking is easily and freely available for a lot of things. Now, if you're looking for the definition of a word, or, hey, Google, what is 2 + 2 = 4? Because I don't know. That's freely available and easily, right? But I think, and sorry if I made your Googles go off at home watching this.
Hey, Google.
Hey, Google.
Oh, gosh.
Hey, Siri.
Alexa.
But anyways, I think that a lot of the most important information that we might be looking for is very difficult to come across, actually, because what we get instead is people's opinions or people's very filtered versions of the truth. There's almost no news agency that we can turn to with any confidence that we're going to get a sober, neutral presentation of what's happening or whatever.
but wait, there is no such thing as a sober, neutral presentation of the news or facts. Like, even if you say, this is my sober, neutral presentation
Right,
of the
that's what I
facts,
just meant.
you
Yeah,
yourself,
I said that.
Don't they all say that?
they all say
Oh,
that.
of course
right?
they all say that, yeah.
Fair
No, but
enough.
that's exactly what I'm saying, is that doesn't exist. And that's actually one of the challenges, is that we have this perceived notion of like, yeah, we can get all the information we want, but like really for the most important stuff that's relevant right now with our current events, it's actually almost impossible to get a grip on just fundamentally what is happening without the bias.
Perhaps even the eternal events.
Absolutely.
I like the contrast you begin to make there, the distinctions, Nick, because maybe even the way that we've set this up, Rob, an addiction to information. Again, maybe that's wrong here. It's more.
It was his idea.
It's the. I think what we're addicted to, we're addicted to the act of informing ourselves, in the sense of the consuming.
Yes.
Again, what are you calling it? Information is dicey, facts dicey, because it's a mishmash of all kinds of stuff, and we're not really usually in a position to figure out what. But I think what we're addicted to is the trickle of intellectual stimuli. Like, that's what we're addicted to, because you don't get addicted to something higher than yourself, something that draws you up. You get addicted to something lower. We're addicted to just like the raw consumable data.
Yeah.
But when you actually like pursue in scripture or through hard, real research some issue that you really want to be informed about, it puts demands on you. Like the truth puts demands on you. It's hard work. It does something to you. But the kind of information that we're addicted to consuming doesn't demand anything of us. It doesn't demand intellectual work. It doesn't demand that we go search down answers. It doesn't demand we actually change anything about our lives. We're addicted to the junk food consuming of headlines
and the sense
stuff.
of control that it gives us, right? Like if I just know all the latest up to the moment tweets and whatever, then somehow that's going to allow me to survive this 2020 or 2021 bullcrap a little bit more than I would have without the information. So the sense of control over our lives and protecting ourselves and yeah.
If I just check my Facebook feed or my email, it will make me happy.
But there is like good, healthy knowledge to have, and I think the temptation on the other end
addicted.
is
Excuses. This is what this is right here.
That step, the denial.
Yeah, right.
Denial. It's getting started.
Just kidding.
We'll work
just
through
kidding,
this.
Just
Keep
kidding. Just
going.
kidding. This
My
sounded
name is
important.
Pete.
Go, Pete.
there are
How
a lot
much
of
time a day? Okay, go on.
Well, interestingly enough, I did just hear on the radio this morning that the average person spends 2 hours on social media a day, another 4 to 6 hours on any type of media, whether that's TV or news, whatever it may be. So clearly we have an addiction problem in the country and nation, and we'd all agree. And they said that in that same average study, that same person, if they're a person of faith, only spends about 20 minutes a week in the scriptures. So clearly there's an issue here with our priorities and where we need to put them. So we all agree with that. But I think some people, seeing that incongruence there, then kind of go to the opposite end and they embrace this idea of like a Benedict option. Like, I'm not even going to care what's going on in the world. I'm just going to go in my own home. I'm going to raise my family, and I'm not going to go out and, care for other people or care for the poor or be engaged in politics.
Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, are you saying the Benedict option is a negative thing?
It's a good point, but that's not a fair
That may be
characterization of the Benedict
a limitation
option.
of some people who approach a certain way of life, but it is not characteristic of those who would say
The point stands.
point
but
stands.
So
leave Rod out of this,
maybe
man.
they're using the Benedict option as an excuse to totally disconnect in an escapist way.
There you go. That works.
But I don't think that's really a disconnection from information, though. So I think when we're talking about information, I don't think it's the definition you tried to give at the beginning, Nick, where information has anything to do with truth, because we're just as addicted to opinions, and also not necessarily opinions that match ours, because people will read article after article or listen to commentator after commentator that disagree with them, sort of just to like get themselves fired up. It's like this, I don't know, self-flagellating addiction. You do something that is not bringing you joy.
It's like
when
the
the
confirmation bias.
It's like when the toddler like plays with his poop, It's like it's a little bit like that. Just like we love the dumpster fire. We love just to see how look at
what are your toddlers doing, John Mark?
Yeah,
what happens.
let's talk about
If it hasn't happened yet. You better buckle up.
But I think even folks. So when you said that, you said the Benedict option of retreating from society. I sort of thought immediately where you were going to go with something like the Amish, who sort of very much take themselves away. They're not watching CNN or Fox News or reading it. They've got their own newspapers and things. However, though I've never been Amish myself, knowing human nature as I do, they would experience that for other things, right? Isn't that the root of gossip? Right? I want to know what's going on. You tell me what's going on. And I refuse to believe that just because you don't have TV or Facebook, that you don't experience this same draw to be addicted
There's a great
to
example
information.
of that in The Village by M. Night Shyamalan. So
Shyamalan.
Yes,
Shyamalan, fantastic name. Don't disparage it. You may continue. M. Night Shyamalan is one of the most
M. Night
epic names.
Shyamalan.
Oh my gosh.
So anyways, The Village is a great example of like these adults that are trying to protect their children and their future children, and so they end up like buying a ton of property and building this like really antiquated village inside of this massive barrier of woods all around. And to keep their kids from wanting to explore and venture out into the real world, they end up. Well, this is a major spoiler.
Don't spoil the movie.
Crap out of it, man.
But
I was going to see it.
well, you haven't seen it yet.
It has been out for like 20
Yeah,
years.
that's on you.
I think if you want to talk about it,
I was going to see it again.
Spoiler alert,
For the
if you
users at
haven't
home,
seen The
I've seen
Village
it.
yet,
All right.
turn us back on about 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Go.
Okay. So 5 minutes starting now.
Probably
so
more than necessary.
So the idea of that is that they, in avoiding evil, they end up like resorting to evil in a sense to keep their kids afraid of leaving. So they develop this myth of like these creatures, and they end up like actually building these costumes of these creatures and dressing up like them, and having, you know, a watch guard to protect the village from, and they have these huge bells and like, so like an alarm system in a sense, and they end up this massive deceit that ends up getting people hurt, like really hurt throughout the process of all this stuff playing out. And you can't escape evil. Like, you can choose good. Mm-hmm. You can cultivate good. You can cultivate goodness, but like, you can't
Protect yourself from it.
you can't protect yourself from it by hiding from it, or like by trying to pretend it's not there,
Or lying to people for their own good.
or lying to people for their
It
own
never
good.
works out well.
Yeah, right.
Well, oftentimes the cure for an addiction, an addiction is usually a twisted attachment to something where there is good there somewhere, and our attachment has made it evil, or we're attached to an evil aspect of it. And the solution is often not to, or the ideal is not to completely cut that out, but to have a healthy relationship with it. So it's not to shut yourself off from information and I don't want to know anything and I'm going to plug my ears and close my eyes and just live in my own little world. Mm-hmm. But the ideal of coming away from an addiction is to have a healthy relationship with whatever it is. So to have a healthy relationship with information, I think.
But if you're caught up in the falsehoods of everyday life and all this information in front of you, you're just addicted. You know, I do think we have a duty to escape from it, if it's only for a time, in pursuit of the truth, in pursuit of deeper things, you know, like to form a new habit or to be able to approach it again in a healthy way.
Right. Well, this gets into this broader topic of habit formation and breaking bad habits, forming good ones. What's interesting about, I think, forming or breaking habits are connected to the virtue of temperance. That's what we're talking about here. We have a desire, a craving for something. And how do you deal with that thing? Well, one of the interesting things about temperance, I think, is that if you're trying to build the virtue of temperance in regard to a thing, it's hard often to directly attack that thing. You kind of have to go at it indirectly. So again, if you have an issue with
Drinking.
Sure, there we go with that one. Your first line of attack isn't necessarily to just try to directly moderate that thing. You kind of have to build the virtues around that thing. You may need to take a break from that thing and build the virtues around it before you can return to that thing. And so there may be situations where, again, the ultimate goal is to have a temperate relationship with these good things, but you may have to step away to be able to explore, well, what does that even look like? How can I really know what that looks like when I'm caught in that thing? You kind of have to sometimes have some separation from it to look back in and say, okay, what would it even look like to have a healthy relationship with information in this case? Mm-hmm. The medievals, I just want to throw in here as a couple terms. The medievals, the scholastics, Aquinas and others, they actually had two terms in relationship to kind of this issue. And that one was studiositas. We recognize the studiousness as kind of the root there, the relationship. And they called it curiositas. You know, we think of curiosity in a very positive way, but they contrasted studiousness, this virtuous, prudent study of things that are my business, that I should be studying, and I'm studying it at the right way, in the right time, the right degree, versus this curiosity, this craving for things that I really like. Again, I'm at work and I'm craving to see what the latest dumpster fire from Washington is. That is this unhealthy curiosity that I don't have a handle on. It's not that there's never a time or place to inform myself about political issues, for instance, but I have to recognize that even though that's the case, I myself might have this addiction, this curiosity, this craving that keeps me from ever being able to do it in the right way, in the right time.
And this curiositas is like, it's killing our nation. It's killing dialogue, which we talked about in the last show, because all the networks, they're geared towards these headlines that are just meant to catch you and grab you. And so when you go to even look about the news or study it, what's going on, it's like, you know, Democrat destroys Republican in this conversation. You go and watch the tape and it's just like, they had a civil discussion, they disagreed, but like the headline was, you know, someone was just destroyed. And so it's really hard to have this attitude of study approaching these issues when everything is geared towards catching our attention, because it's all about the dollars at the end of the day. So I think that drives the idol of seeking information more than anything.
I don't claim to be an expert historian on this matter, but I think, to the best of my memory, there was a fundamental shift in the way news was delivered on September 11th. if you remember that day. I don't know for sure if 24-hour news networks were a thing before September 11th. It's possible that they were. They certainly weren't as popular, I don't believe. And one of the things that became a thing on September 11th was whenever you're watching the news and they have the scroll of other news going on down at the bottom. That was something that appeared for the first time on September 11th because so much craziness was happening in our country. And so as a response to these terrible terrorist attacks, we found security in knowing what was going on. And there was increased fear in not knowing what was going on. So as a response to that crisis, they tried to deliver as much information and throw it at us constantly so that we wouldn't feel in the dark, which I think is an appropriate response to that crisis. And so they would have someone talking, and then they also had updates scrolling across the bottom of the screen so you wouldn't miss anything. But I don't think we've ever moved out of that crisis mode that we're continuing to live now.
Yeah, no, I think, so I completely agree. Let me just say, I was checking some news, but it's surprisingly.
I was going to call you out on it, but I'm like, no.
So it was actually June 1st, 1980 that CNN became the first 24-hour cable news network. So it started much before then, but certainly after.
I think there was
September
something about
11th.
that date that really ramped things up, though.
I think your example points out something interesting here. So curiosity, this curiositas, whatever, is referring to kind of an addiction, a bad relationship with information that has to do with desire, this craving. But there's on the other, so connected to courage, by contrast, there's another reason we might be attached to information, and that's out of fear. So that's something worth thinking about. If you set your phone in front of you here, put your phones on the table, everybody. Hey, you gotta sit here for a while in silence, and when you begin to get that urge for your phone, you need to interrogate yourself a little bit. Is this out of desire? Is my issue with the information a craving, or is it, or maybe, and it may be both these things too, or is it coming out of a fear?
FOMO.
Fear of missing out. I guess that's a little bit of both. The point here is we need to recognize where these urges, where these desires are coming from, because that then gives us a sense of what do I need to do to fix this. If I'm driven by fear, and again, the media benefits by me being driven either by fear or desire, then I need to go take that to the Lord and try to remedy that. You know, if fear is my issue, I need to try to set this aside and grow in trust in God, because I don't need to be driven by fear. You know,
that ties in exactly with, I think it was after 9/11 that things picked up, because that was a fearful event. Everyone was afraid. And so the 24 hours news service really caught on. So that's where we're at.
And from that then, because I mean, we still do every day, all the time, even if it's a slow news day, there's still the ticker at the bottom of the screen, just in case what they're speaking about doesn't satiate your need for information. They will give you some more down at the bottom. But then that's turned into now one of the most genius, but also probably insidious technological inventions was the infinite scroll.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So from a marketing perspective for a company that wants someone to use their app, and the AWAKEN Catholic app is nothing like this.
No.
That is a virtuous
no
and
infinite
holy.
scroll.
There's no infinite scroll there. From someone who wants you to use their app, they're going to give you information in such a way that it feeds that addiction. And the infinite scroll constantly does that. You never get to the end.
I wonder if anyone's gotten the end of Facebook.
There is no end.
Saw it all.
The closest thing, honest to goodness, the closest thing there is, and it makes people angry, is on TikTok. Every now and then, the TikTok app has an algorithm, and it knows, because it knows everything, how long you've been watching videos, and it will put up a video from TikTok that says, "Hold on, you've been scrolling a little too long." Or
How do you know this?
Are you Tookie talking?
I'm on the TikTok. I'm on the TikTok.
All right, what's your handle?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Yeah.
Father Jeff, wouldn't you like to know?
Put it in the comments. Find it.
I consume rather than create on TikTok, so don't get too excited.
There's all these dancing videos.
Yeah, I'm imagining dancing videos.
But this is sort of an attempt, I think, and maybe even a virtuous attempt, because I'm not sure what the monetary benefit would be for them to tell someone to stop using their app.
But
But people
limit the
get
bad press, maybe. I don't
people
know.
get so fired up by this and says, "Get this off my screen! Don't tell me I'm watching too much." Or the same thing with Netflix, which I don't
still
have
watching this?
Exactly, and people get a little offended by that. When Netflix says, "Are you still watching?" Yes, I'm still watching. Mind your own business. And I'm going to watch an 8th or 9th or 10th episode.
Yeah.
But that's also the sign of an unhealthy relationship to something. When your response to that is not, "Oh, you're right. I have been watching a little too much. Maybe I'll get up and walk around for a little bit."
And again, part of our defensiveness is precisely because at some level an addiction has been surfaced here. You know, and again, we can not talk necessarily about addiction in the full-blown sense, but even in the subtler sense of a lack of freedom, an impaired freedom. I'm doing things that I don't fully choose or know why I'm doing. I'm being kind of carried along by this thing. And that's like we're called to freedom. We're called to be people who love and give ourselves freely. And whenever we find ourselves unfree, like we really should take note of that. I think it's important with the discussion about information, because part of what I think gets us caught up in this sometimes is that oftentimes we are consuming information that we consider to be good and useful and necessary. But that makes it difficult to separate the studious research of information from our craving for it, because, well, we're doing something good. But the thing is, if we're cementing an unfreedom, if we're cementing an addiction, the problem is you're becoming a person who can't do any good with that information, even if it is good and true and right. Like, you have to be a person of freedom.
You know, the challenge today that I see, though, is like information is power in a lot of ways, and it's used so quickly, even in the political realm, and it's used to convince people of doing X, Y, or Z, or, you know, but this goes all the way back when I was in John Carroll University. Like, some of the classes I had, history classes, was looking at certain founders in a negative light, and I felt like I had to go outside of my studies of the books that I was provided, read other books so that I could come back with different information that challenged those common views that I was pushed to believe. So in the same way today, I mean, you look at the way that news is presented, like Nick was saying before, you have an event that goes on and you're presented with all this flood of information. Unless you take time to do further study into other information, you would just go along with the crowd and flow and say, yes, this, because X happened, then Y should certainly happen. When Y shouldn't happen because X didn't happen as it did.
Most recently, what happened, the riots and the rally at the Capitol, like, you saw such vivid and colorful portrayals on the news channels of what happened there. And I spoke with someone who was there, and it was such a starkly different experience of what they witnessed and experienced there. He described that 90% of the crowds that were there had no idea that there was any violence, because the crowds were spread out the way they were, and the instances of violence were so concentrated in small areas, and they had no cell phone reception, so none of them even knew it was happening, because they literally cut phones from getting any reception in that area. And so it's just like everyone there was like, wait, there's violence happening? Like, but as the way you would think of it when you're looking at it in the news is like, it was just this insane rampage and all this stuff. And just as a really relevant recent example of what you're describing.
So getting down to brass tacks, I mean, what do you guys think on a daily basis, asking for a friend, would be a healthy consumption
For an addict?
of news, of, you know, information in this regard?
I
mean,
would
if
say
it's an idol.
I don't think that we should strive to make this a necessary daily thing in our lives. I think it's important at times to know certain things, but I think each individual has to really look and say, how is this information enriching my life? What is real value for me, and what is just my curiosity?
I have some ideas there. So I think one of the things is, I think we need to start with the virtue of justice here. Okay, start with, like, there is a real objective hierarchy of duties and responsibilities in my life. First and foremost, to know, love, and serve God, you know, in the sense of worship and prayer. Like, that is my first relationship. And then I'm married, so it's loving and taking care of my spouse, and then my family, and then my job, etc. We can come to know that hierarchy. And so then when we're evaluating the information that's out there and its usefulness to us, we have to position it in that hierarchy. Okay, it is not directly, it's indirectly, but not directly involved with my relationship with God, whether I'm up with current events. That's not the importance of that. It actually has very little bearing. Where it has bearing is that, well, in my ability to be a good father or a good husband or to do my job or to do my ministry, then
Be a
there's
good citizen. to be a good member of the community. Those are also part of our
Precisely. So those I think you need to start with like an honest, kind of sober evaluation of what are those actual hierarchy of responsibilities, and recognizing that only directly affects something that's down on the chain a little bit. So it has to be kept in that proper context. Then once we have a sense of that, then the question becomes, okay, so in a given day, okay, there are times where it's an option, that maybe this is how I use some of my time to check on the media or get to know what's going on out there. But there are other times that it's just clearly not. Like when I get up the first thing in the morning, I shouldn't be like, even if there's a place in my life for catching up on current events and trying to inform myself, the first thing I do when I roll out of my bed to get on the media is not it. Or when I'm playing with my kids, or when I'm at prayer, or when I'm supposed to be working at my actual job. So that's a next level here, is that, well, I can rule out a large portion of the day that really shouldn't be devoted to that. And I think, but then a third thing is that, especially when we've got something where we recognize we wrestle with an attachment to, we should have a plan. That it shouldn't just be when I'm not supposed to be doing something else and I feel like it. That shouldn't be the criteria. If we know that, okay, I should take some time to inform myself, that should be a plan. Like, okay, once a day, or after lunch, I'm going to take a half an hour and work on this, or something like that. Some plan so that I can know when I'm going past that because I have a craving.
John Mark, I think you summarized that really well. I think we've had a great conversation today. Pete, I hope this has been helpful for you in your own life.
And your struggles?
And your
intervention.
Struggles.
I didn't mean to summarize it. I just was...
But you did. It was great. So thank you all for joining us this week. We will see you next week on the Catholic Men Show.
This show and all media on Awaken Catholic is made possible by the Awaken Nation and the Hallow app. The Awaken Nation is a community of people like you who support all things Awaken for as cheap as a cup of coffee a week and get access to exclusive content. Learn more by visiting awakencatholic.org/donate. Hallow is the only audio-guided Catholic prayer app focused on contemplative prayer and traditional Catholic meditation such as Lectio Divina, Daily Examen, and the Rosary. We here at Awaken all use Hallow every day and love it. To learn more or give it a try, visit hallow.app/awaken.